Hello, I'm Katie Wilson and you're watching A News. Here are your top stories. Israel pulls back its troops as thousands of Palestinians head home to northern Gaza. Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Corina Machado is awarded with the Nobel Peace Prize. And CIS leaders sign a new Plus deal expanding regional cooperation at a summit in Dushanbe. First this evening, Israeli troops have begun withdrawing from parts of Gaza under a US-brokered ceasefire and hostage deal aimed at ending more than 2 years of war. The truce, proposed by President Trump, took effect at 12 noon local time as displaced Palestinians began returning home.
The Israeli and Hamas approved first phase of a ceasefire and hostage exchange deal means that the Israeli forces have begun withdrawing from parts of the Gaza Strip. The deal is aimed at ending more than 2 years of conflict. The agreement, proposed by US President Donald Trump and finalized after intensive talks in Egypt, took effect at noon Friday. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu hailed the agreement as one of our greatest achievements and thanked Trump for his world leadership.
I thought that if we add massive political pressure by our great friend President Trump to our great military pressure, this powerful combination will make Hamas bring back all of our hostages while the IDF remains deep in the Gaza Strip and holds all its controlling areas. And this is what is happening.
Under the deal, Hamas has 72 hours to release the remaining Israeli hostages and return the bodies of others, while Israel will free around 2,000 Palestinian prisoners and detainees. Hundreds of aid trucks carrying food, fuel and medical supplies are expected to enter Gaza daily. A 200-member multinational monitoring force coordinated by the US, but without American troops on the ground, will oversee the ceasefire. In Gaza, thousands of displaced families have started moving north as Israeli tanks withdraw.
Today, there was some withdrawal by the Israeli army, and we returned to where we used to live, hoping the places still exist. We are searching for at least a mattress or a pillow because winter is coming. I think I will not find anything with this level of destruction.
I hope the war will not return, God willing. But what was lost will not return, as well as the martyrs who were lost.
The ceasefire marks the first stage of Trump's broader 20-point peace plan, which envisions Gaza's demilitarization, reconstruction, and eventual transfer of governance to a reformed Palestinian Authority. Whether the fragile truce will hold remains to be seen.
New details of Donald Trump's upcoming visit to Jerusalem have been announced. The US president is expected to arrive on Monday morning and head straight to the Knesset, where he will deliver a speech.
I think it's going to be great. I think it's the hostages will be coming back Monday or Tuesday. I'll probably be there. I hope to be there, and we're planning on leaving sometime Sunday. Yeah, nobody's going to be forced to leave. No, it's just the opposite. This is a great plan. This is a great peace plan. This is a plan that was supported by everybody.
Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Corina Machado has won this year's Nobel Peace Prize for her work promoting democratic rights. The award has drawn praise from international organisations, but also sparked some criticism from the White House.
The world is still searching for peace. But this year, the Nobel Committee has chosen its symbol. Maria Corina Machado, the Venezuelan opposition leader, receives the 2025 Nobel Peace Prize.
The Nobel Peace Prize for 2025 goes to a brave and committed champion of peace, to a woman who keeps the flame of democracy burning amidst a growing darkness.
Maria Corina Machado is one of Venezuela's most prominent opposition figures, a former lawmaker and long-time advocate for democracy and human rights. She has been a leading voice against President Nicolas Maduro's rule, calling for free and fair elections and a peaceful transition of power. Earlier this year, Machado was barred from running in Venezuela's presidential election, a move widely condemned by international observers. Despite governmental pressure and political persecution, she remains one of the strongest voices for peaceful change in the country. Machado has been forced to live in hiding since being barred from running in last year's election. Now the Nobel Committee says she is receiving the Nobel Peace Prize for her tireless work promoting democratic rights for the people of Venezuela and for her struggle to achieve a just and peaceful transition from dictatorship to democracy. The reactions to Maria Corina Machado's Nobel Peace Prize show widespread support on the international stage. The UN Human Rights Office said the prize reflects the clear aspirations of the people of Venezuela for free and fair elections.
We congratulate Maria Corina Machado on being announced as the winner of the Nobel Peace Prize. This recognition reflects the clear aspirations of the people of Venezuela for free and fair elections, for civil and political rights, and for the rule of law.
European Union Chief Ursula von der Leyen also celebrated Machado's win, praising not only her courage, but every voice that refuses to be silenced. Meanwhile, in the United States, the White House expressed a different reaction. Spokesperson Stephen Chung criticized the Nobel Committee for not awarding the prize to President Donald Trump. The timing of the announcement, coinciding with the Gaza ceasefire, has fueled debate over whether Trump's efforts were overlooked.
Joining us now to discuss the Nobel Peace Prize and its winner is Senior Editor at Issue Insight, John Kavelich. Thank you for being with us. Now, can you talk us through Machado's achievements and why she was chosen as the winner today?
You know, she has a history, and there's a continuity in what she does. And she's shown humility, she's shown character, she's shown empathy, and she's shown an ability to not have resources and still face an unbelievably resilient government in terms of that one run by Nicolas Maduro. And so that gives the Nobel Committee a trajectory to look at. And as far as, or instead of a moment, it's a series of moments. And she, has been resilient, and it has been a part of a process that's continued to unfold. And that's what they were recognizing, that this isn't someone who has a tremendous amount of resources at their disposal and then using those resources to force an outcome. This is someone who didn't have resources, who has to convince people to take a chance in spite of what's going to be a response from a sitting government, pretty much knowing the outcome before she began, but she still perseveres. And so was basically recognizing her character.
And the situation in Venezuela is largely unreported by global media outlets. Could this prize help bring the situation in Venezuela into the global spotlight?
Absolutely. I've been focusing on Cuba for over 30 years, and so Venezuela is a very, very big part of that. And what Ms. Machado did was to thank President Trump, and that was, brilliantly handled, because the Trump-Vance administration has been very aggressive toward the Maduro government. And so she's basically saying, okay, Mr. President, you didn't get the Peace Prize, but we want to thank you for what you've been doing. And by thanking you, we're hoping your administration is going to continue to be as aggressive as they seem to want to be in terms of military activities surrounding Venezuela. So in that regard, I think that She was smart.
You mentioned President Trump there. How has the Trump administration been reacting to this decision? We've even had reaction from Putin, who said that Trump had done a great deal to resolve complex crises, and Trump responded to that.
Yeah, unfortunately, the Trump administration, Mr. Chung, whose note you read, that's an example of a lack of character. Rather than cede the day, okay, you wanted the prize, you didn't get it, but now you recognize, you embrace the winner. And no, it just can't be. And, if you're the 5 members of the Nobel Committee and you're looking through this year, I think they had 338 nominees. And when they're looking through and then they see Donald Trump, he's campaigning for it. He's basically demanding the award. And then the people around him, sore losers. And so, it's really unfortunate where the president should have been on his Truth Social this morning saying, congratulations, Ms. Machado. We remain behind you, and we look forward to the day where you are president of Venezuela. But no, their DNA just doesn't allow it.
Now, the committee chairman described Machado as a key unifying figure. What do you think was behind that comment? Is it perhaps to highlight a contrast with Trump?
No, you can look at read the words. I watched the video this morning of the telephone call that was made to Ms. Machado informing her, and you could, her voice just resonated with gratitude. And I think that what this showed was that the committee was sending a message in a Norwegian way, very subtle, but they were saying, look, the Peace Prize is generally about a culmination of work, and it's about sometimes a singular goal. And with President Trump, you had him, his 7 wars, 8 wars, 10 wars, each day it changes in terms of, what he solved. But in Ms. Machado's case, this was about, again, a start point, which is against all odds, and maintaining her position during the campaign, being defeated in an election that everyone or most people will say was rigged, going into hiding, and still maintaining her poise, still maintaining her vision for a changed Venezuela. And if you're the Norwegian committee, those 5 members, you're looking at that, and again, I circle back. You see character, you see humility, you see empathy, and you see someone that doesn't have an army behind them trying to make a change in a country.
Always great to have you on the programme, John. Thank you very much for providing your insight.
Thank you.
Turning now to the US, where President Trump said NATO should consider expelling Spain over its failure to meet defence spending commitments. The dispute centres on Madrid's refusal to raise its military budget to 5% of its GDP, a target agreed by NATO members in June. Speaking at the White House with Finnish President Alexander Stubb, Trump said European leaders should pressure Spain to fulfill its obligations. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez has rejected the target, saying it conflicts with his country's social priorities. King Charles and Prince William made a rare joint appearance on Thursday to show support for the upcoming COP30 climate summit in Brazil, amid growing global divisions over climate action. King Charles has long championed environmental causes, and Prince William will represent the UK at this year's UN climate talks in Belém. William is also set to present the Earthshot Prize ahead of the summit. Leaders from more than 190 countries are expected to attend the summit to set new emission targets. Well, it's been a busy week for President Macron of France as he's attempted to appoint a new Prime Minister after the previous one resigned after 26 days in office. Our correspondent Anita Sharma joins us live. Hi Anita, now what is the latest developments?
Katie, we're all on tenterhooks here in Europe, waiting to see what Emmanuel Macron does next, and more importantly, what he says next with respect to appointing a new prime minister. I'm here in The Hague, Netherlands, but this story has reverberated throughout Europe and, of course, across the pond towards North America, as well as across Baku, Azerbaijan, and beyond. Everyone is waiting to see how this drama continues to unfold in Paris, France. So let's get to it. As we wait for Emmanuel Macron to essentially announce his latest prime minister, he did meet earlier today, this evening, at the Élysée Palace with leaders from the main centrist as well as right-wing parties to get consensus on a new prime minister. I should say the far right, members of the far right and the far left, were excluded from this meeting. That's a clear signal that Macron is really trying to move forward and gain some traction, gain some movement, and be able to essentially move forward. He himself, Katie, had set the 48-hour deadline on Wednesday to name a new prime minister. Let's talk about the outgoing prime minister, and that would be Sébastien Lecornu. He's still in office, but I should note that only in a caretaker capacity. As you may know, he resigned abruptly on Sunday, just 14 hours after his cabinet was announced. How did we get here? What was the problem? Well, essentially, members from across the political spectrum thought, what's going on here? The cabinet that Lecornu had essentially appointed was pretty much the same old, which means they were not going to see any movement moving forward. So they said, forget this. And Lecornu essentially said, okay, if I can't move forward, I might as well just step away from office. So that's the situation we're in right now. Very quickly, we're getting reaction from across the political spectrum. We're hearing from the National Rally under Marine Le Pen. She has essentially said these political movements that we're seeing from Macron's government, they are designed to essentially escape election at all costs. Now, she has a vested interest in saying this because during the snap elections in 2024, it was actually the far-right National Rally that gained a lot of momentum. So a snap election now, which is what they're really trying to push Macron to do, could only be seen to benefit immensely the far-right party. But this is a to-be-continued situation as we wait to see who Macron appoints moving forward. Look out for a technocrat, but of course we'll stay on top of the story and bring you the latest on A News. Katie.
Thanks, Anita.
You bet.
Leaders of the Commonwealth of Independent States met in Dushanbe on Friday, with Tajikistan's president chairing the summit. The main outcome of the summit was the CIS Plus partnership platform, while discussions focused on key regional issues.
Top officials from Commonwealth of Independent States gathered in Dushanbe for strategic discussions. The talks focused on strengthening regional security, energy cooperation, and counter-terrorism efforts. The meeting was attended by the heads of state of Azerbaijan, Armenia, Belarus, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Russia, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan, as well as CIS Secretary General Sergei Lebedev. A total of 19 documents were signed following the meeting, including a declaration on cooperation in ensuring regional energy security. Member states also adopted long-term strategies, including a military cooperation plan and a declaration on energy security. One key outcome was Kazakhstan's proposal for a new CIS Plus partnership platform to expand collaboration with other nations and international organizations. Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev expressed gratitude for Lachin being named this year's cultural capital of the CIS, highlighting the city's rapid restoration and rich cultural heritage.
Выражаю благодарность главам государств СНГ за поддержку кандидатуры города Лачин.
I express my gratitude to the CIS heads of state for supporting the candidacy of the city of Lachin in Azerbaijan's East Zangezur region as the cultural capital of the CIS for this year. In June of this year, Lachin hosted the opening ceremony of the Year of the CIS Cultural Capital, during which information about the history and cultural heritage of this ancient Azerbaijani land was presented. Guests of the event witnessed firsthand the rapid revival of Lachin following its liberation from 30 years of Armenian occupation. A city that was completely destroyed has in just a few years transformed into one of the most beautiful and livable cities.
While Armenia's Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan touched on the importance of peace and regional connectivity, highlighting new transport links within the CIS.
I am pleased to note that after a long conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan, peace has been established. The Trump route will allow Armenia to have railway and other transport links with the CIS member states. This will help strengthen economic ties within the Commonwealth and increase its efficiency, opening up new export and import opportunities for the organization.
Economic partnership and trade were also among the focal points of the summit, as President Putin emphasized that deeper economic ties among CIS members could unlock vast regional potential and strengthen mutual resilience.
Last year, Russia's trade turnover with the Central Asian states, the Five, exceeded $45 billion. In general, this is a good result. So our trade turnover with Belarus exceeds $50 billion. And I will remind you that Belarus' population is 10 million people, Uzbekistan is almost 40 million, Tajikistan is over 10 million, and Kazakhstan is over 20 million. Just imagine, not to mention other countries, what a colossal resource. And this means there are also good prospects for developing our economic relations.
The next meeting of the CIS Council of Heads of State is expected to be held in Turkmenistan in October 2026. Sergei Lebedev will continue his tenure as CIS Secretary General for the next 3 years.
Staying on the summit, Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan said that the so-called Trump route will open new opportunities to strengthen links between Armenia and other CIS member states. Here's more.
I am pleased to note that after a long conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan, peace has been established. The Trump route will allow Armenia to have railway and other transport links with the CIS member states. This will help strengthen economic ties within the Commonwealth and increase its efficiency, opening up new export and import opportunities for the organization.
Uzbekistan is getting ready to launch a new phase in its energy partnership with Russia. Both sides plan to sign a contract for the construction of the country's first large-scale nuclear power plant by March 2026. Our correspondent Sevil Rajapova has more from Tashkent.
Uzbekistan and Russia are advancing plans to build the country's first nuclear power plant. The plant will be located in the Far-East district of Jizakh region and is expected to become one of the largest infrastructure projects in the country's modern history. The project includes 4 reactors, 2 large-scale capacity VVER 1000 units of the latest generation, and 2 smaller RITM 200N reactors, each producing around 55 megawatts of electricity. Construction is expected to begin shortly after the contract is finalized, with development to proceed in several stages. Authorities claim the project will prioritize local involvement. Up to 70% of the workforce and contractors will be from Uzbekistan, creating around 20,000 new jobs. Alongside the plant, supporting infrastructure such as housing, schools and public facilities will be developed in surrounding areas. For reference, gas supply from Russia to Central Asia, including Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan, have risen up by about 15% in the first 8 months of 2025, compared to the same period in 2024. Also in 2024, Gazprom delivered 5.64 billion cubic meters of gas to Uzbekistan, up from 1.28 billion in 2023. Experts believe the nuclear power will complement these efforts by diversifying Uzbekistan's energy mix, reducing reliance on imported fuel, and ensuring a more stable power supply for industries and households alike. It is Civil Vajapov reporting from Tashkent, Uzbekistan, A News.
Iran and Russia look set to boost their relationship with nuclear power. Their comprehensive agreement began just over a week ago with a deal that lays down long-term cooperation and includes the production of nuclear energy. Our correspondent Taraz Shiralilu reports.
Less than 2 weeks after Iran and Russia signed documents in the Russian capital on nuclear energy production, Tehran and Moscow have now discussed beginning the construction of nuclear power reactors. According to the Atomic Energy Organization of Iran, its chief Mohammad Islami met with the Deputy Director for International Affairs of State Atomic Energy Corporation Rosatom, Nikolai Spassky, in Tehran on Wednesday, 8th of October. It said that they held detailed negotiations on developing small modular reactors. These can generate 300 megawatts of nuclear power. They also discussed the construction of 1,250 megawatt reactors. The move comes after the Treaty on Comprehensive Strategic Partnership was signed in January by both countries to improve their ties. It came into force last Thursday and will be valid for 20 years. There are 74 articles addressing technology, information and cybersecurity, peaceful nuclear energy collaboration, counterterrorism measures, regional cooperation, environmental issues, and combating money laundering and organized crime. Previously, Islami had signed 2 documents in September regarding small modular reactors and the Iran Hormuz major nuclear power plant project, where 4 1,250 megawatt reactors will be built at a value of more than $25 billion. The Atomic Energy Organization of Iran also announced that the Rosatom CEO, Alexei Likhachev, will be visiting Tehran soon to follow up on the agreed issues, including progress in the construction of Units 2 and 3 of Bushehr nuclear power plant. Unit 1 is the country's first ever 1,000 megawatt nuclear power plant and has been connected to the national grid since 2012 based on an agreement with Rosatom. The Russian firm took over the project after the German Siemens company withdrew from its 1974 contract with Iran following the Islamic Revolution, which ousted the Provost Shah monarchy in 1979. Taraz Shiralilu in Tehran, A News TV.
Now to Afghanistan, where the city was rocked by 2 powerful explosions and automatic gunfire. Reports of a fighter jet was heard over the city's airspace. Our correspondent Tamim Bahis has more from Kabul.
Early reports suggest this may have been a targeted aerial strike allegedly aimed at Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan chief Nurwali Masood. The operation comes less than 48 hours after Pakistan's Defence Minister Khwaja Asif accused Afghanistan of harbouring terrorists. With limited air defence capabilities and no functioning Afghan Air Force, experts in Kabul are calling this a blatant violation of Afghan sovereignty. In a brief statement on social media, Taliban spokesperson Zabiullah Mujahid confirmed an explosion had been heard and said an investigation is underway. No further details have been released from Kabul. Meanwhile, Pakistan has not claimed responsibility, but the country's military media wing, ISPR, says it will hold an important press conference later today. There are also unconfirmed reports of additional airstrikes in Paktika province, but A News has not been able to independently verify those claims. Since returning to power, the Taliban government has denied hosting TTP militants, despite repeated allegations from Islamabad that fighters operate from Afghan soil to launch attacks inside Pakistan. As tension rises between Kabul and Islamabad, this latest incident could mark a dangerous new phase in cross-border hostilities. Tamim Bahis in Kabul, A News.
Now, 16 years ago, Armenia and Turkey signed the Zurich Protocols, a pivotal step towards reconciliation. These agreements aim to establish diplomatic ties and reopen the closed border between the two countries.
16 years ago, on October 10, 2009, Armenia and Turkey signed the Zurich Protocols, two landmark documents intended to establish diplomatic relations and reopen their border, which had been closed since 1993 following Armenia's occupation of the Kalbajar region in Karabakh. At the time, both governments faced incentives to reach an agreement. Turkey sought closer ties with its neighbors and wanted to strengthen its international standing during its European Union accession process. Armenia, under President Serge Sargsyan, aimed to ease its isolation and stimulate economic recovery after years of strained regional relations. However, the process deliberately left out Azerbaijan. The protocols dealt only with bilateral issues between Ankara and Yerevan, excluding the ongoing Karabakh conflict, then under Armenian occupation. This omission quickly drew criticism from Baku, which viewed the talks as ignoring its territorial concerns.
The revival of ties between Turkey and Armenia can be connected only to resolving the existing conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan.
Turkey, a close ally of Azerbaijan, faced growing domestic pressure not to proceed without progress on Karabakh. Within months, Ankara linked ratification of the protocols to the withdrawal of Armenian forces from Azerbaijani territory, effectively halting the process. In Armenia, opposition parties accused Sargsyan of compromising on the issue of the alleged 1915 genocide and national security. Public protests and political mistrust deepened on both sides. Despite initial international optimism, neither parliament ratified the documents. In March 2018, Armenia officially declared the protocols null and void. The situation changed fundamentally after the Second Karabakh War in 2020, which restored Azerbaijani control over much of the territory lost in the 1990s. With that conflict largely resolved, the regional context for normalization shifted. Turkey and Armenia began a new phase of dialogue in 2022 through special envoys, this time with Azerbaijan directly involved in discussions about connectivity and regional cooperation. Unlike in 2009, the process now unfolds in a geopolitical environment, shaped by new realities and reduced military tensions in the South Caucasus. In recent years, Turkey and Armenia have made steady progress through diplomacy, transport, and cross-border cooperation. Flights between Istanbul and Yerevan resumed in 2022, which border cooperation followed. The Alec and Margaret crossing reopened in 2023 for humanitarian aid to Turkey, and again in 2025 for aid to Syria. In January 2025, Armenia assumed partial control of its borders with Turkey and Iran, strengthening sovereignty and bilateral ties. A U.S.-brokered Armenia-Azerbaijan peace deal in August 2025 introduced the trip corridor through Armenia, supported by Turkey, boosting regional trade and connectivity. While the 2009 effort failed because Azerbaijan was left out, the current process, with Azerbaijan now involved, is more focused on normalizing relations between Armenia and Turkey.
Kazakhstan's president has urged countries in the region to join forces in tackling urgent environmental challenges. He stressed the importance of protecting the Caspian Sea's water resources, which are rapidly shrinking and putting local ecosystems and communities at risk. Fariza Kalamerzana has this report.
Kazakhstan's president is calling for urgent action to save the Caspian Sea. Water levels in the world's largest enclosed body of water are rapidly declining, a crisis that, according to Kassym-Jomart Tokayev, requires immediate intervention. Speaking at the Second Central Asia-Russia Summit in Dushanbe, President Tokayev stressed that implementing the interstate program for the preservation of Caspian water resources must become a top priority for all countries in the region. President Tokayev says Central Asian countries face unprecedented environmental challenges, requiring coordinated government action. He highlighted the urgent need to address the worsening state of transboundary rivers in the Caspian Sea. He also proposed the coordinated interstate program and the creation of a Council of Ministers for Environmental Affairs with Central Asian states and Russia to better manage regional ecological risks. The Caspian region is facing a serious environmental crisis. Wildlife is dying in large numbers, pollution is spreading, and local communities are under growing pressure. All of this is caused by the sharp drop in water levels, and today the Caspian Sea has fallen below its lowest recorded level, now measuring less than -29 meters according to the Baltic Height system. In Kazakhstan, which borders 29% of the Caspian coastline, is witnessing severe shrinkage in the northeastern part of the sea. Since 2001, the shoreline has receded by over 37 kilometers. And increasingly, there are fears that the Caspian could face the same devastating fate as the Aral Sea. Fariza Kalimurzina, Almaty, A News.
That's all we have for now. From all of us here in the studio, thank you for watching and stay tuned to A News.